And welcome back to the European LCS. I'm Quickshot, joined by coach of Roccat, Freddie, ahead of your game with Schalke. Now, before we talk about the game, Freddie, let's talk about the team. Roccat come into the second half of the split with 4 wins and 5 losses. How do you reflect on the first half and how your team performed?
I think so far in this split, there's kind of 2 parts to it. Improvement-wise, I think we really have grown a lot and we've improved a lot. I think that showed in our games against Misfits, almost in our game against Vitality, for example. So I think I'm happy with the improvement we've made. Results, I think, so-so. We should have won a few games. Yesterday, I don't know what happened yesterday. I think we really just lost focus and kind of went into like a chaos playstyle. But yeah, overall improvement, I'm happy. Results, I think we really need to step it up now.
Talking about that result yesterday, surprise defeat to H2K. You're playing Schalke today. How is the mentality of the team based on yesterday's defeat?
Well, I think after yesterday we were a little bit down. We kind of reflected on our loss as a team. We had a talk about it. I think coming in today we're all fresh. I think we're gonna go for something different today, and I don't think we're scared of them at all.
Something different. I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. I've got one last question for you, Freddie. Let's look forward 4.5 weeks. Roccat came out the gate swinging, definitely surprised a few analysts in terms of pre-season tier rankings and tier lists. What do you have to do with the team to guarantee a playoff spot as you look forward?
I think I'm just trying to guide them in the right direction, and most of my focus is just helping them improve. And then we're trying not to focus on the results too much, and from that point on, I think hopefully we're going to start to go on a little bit of a win streak. And it's going to be tough to get into playoffs still. It's a big fight between a lot of teams, but I think we can do it.
Well, best of luck. It all starts with the first win. Maybe it'll be today against Schalke. Best of luck in the game. We're going to head over to Sjokz at the analyst desk for the rest of the show.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Indeed, some different things. We can talk about that in a second. I do have to say, well, you lost to H2K yesterday, but
doesn't seem too bad now.
That's not too bad now. I love that he said we're going to switch it up because Roccat, obviously, they want to be more than a middle-of-the-pack team, but they have struggled to find consistency. That is the bottom line here. So what are the trends that you've seen out of Rockat's playstyle in the last couple of weeks? And do you agree that they need to switch it up, that is the key for them?
Switch it up.
And what are they doing that they then need to switch up?
I think they have shown 2 trends. I think it's this 1-3-1 split push comms that they've been playing and have been executing, honestly, like kind of badly on. And the teamfight comms that they played early in the season, where they relied on the late game team fighting, and Norskeren on the Braum and that kind of stuff, where they have shown a lot more proficiency. And I think for them, it's not about switching it up, at least in my opinion. I think it's for them about returning to their initial strengths and their initial focus, where the late game is something they were like proficient at, and they should not diversify their champion pool and their champions even more.
I think with the way the current meta is shaping now, where it is a lot more about being able to play early to mid game as well, the games are much faster. I don't want to see them do what Giants are trying to do now, which is still go for late game team fight as your main purpose. I think Profit on carry champions when you play around him can be really good, and that does require them to pick a little bit more for split push. I do agree that it's been kind of shaky in the games where they try to pick 1-3-1. We've seen one good once, and then we've seen a few where it actually kind of backfired. But I think that is a style they need to keep playing, to keep improving at it. And then if that doesn't net them a playoff spot, they're simply not good enough. Because I think if they go back to full team fight, I just see them get crushed early on.
But what if it takes them too long to perfect this 1-3-1 style that they will never make it to play?
Then you're not good enough to be in a playoff team. Like, that's the way I see it.
If they're so good at team fights, it means that then there's something right there, right? The cohesion is there somewhere. So can they not just try and do that earlier in the game, or is it not that simple?
It's really hard to draft a super strong teamfight comp that you can use very effectively early on. I also think more teams have just kind of matched them at the team fighting. So it seems to be what they want to do is more about play around Profit and playing as split pushers. He did say, Freddie, he said something different, and maybe it is what Maurice is highlighting, and it's going back to pure team fighting.
We will see. Very excited to see what they bring to the Rift, because their opponents today are Schalke, another team that is looking to show themselves as a top contender. And as we look at this lineup, we are still waiting for it to come online. Yesterday, they let Fnatic take complete control over them. So what do we think of them right now? Are they worthy of being more than a middle-of-the-pack team?
I don't necessarily think so. I think they've shown glimpses of brilliance where they have actually come out and executed a game plan perfectly, but their individual mistakes are just crushing in every single time. And for me, that's something either the players know that they're doing wrong, but I don't think that's something the coaching staff can necessarily control.
So if we look at the team as a whole, are the individual players just not as good as we thought they would be?
I think Upset is playing worse than I expected, but it was hard to kind of 100% know how he would play, seeing as it is his first split. We had a lot of footage from Challenger to base it on, but we also saw some ups and downs there. Like in the first promo tournament he played, it went completely downhill for him. So I guess the evidence was there that maybe on the big stage he wouldn't instantly perform. I think Nukeduck is playing well, outside of yesterday's early game, which was horrible. Chachi plays exactly the way I expected Chachi to play. Some good individual moments and then overextending. I think they have the players to be a top team in Europe. Pride and Upset are 2 question marks for me still. I think Upset is the main one who needs to step up if they want to win late game, where they have actually been losing a lot of games. But I still think they have the talent to be one of the best teams.
Are they beating Roccat today?
What I predict, I think they're going to beat Roccat. I think Roccat doesn't have the individual strength nor the cohesion right now in the mid game to actually match them, and I think Schalke can actually excel like that.
Schalke beats them.
Schalke beats them, according to our analyst. Both of these teams are fighting to catch up with the top teams. Let's see who can close it out today as we head over to our casters.
Thank you very much, Sjokz, and good evening, all you esports fans. I'm Devin Piratechnics Young, and I'm alongside Andrew Vedius Day. What's up, man?
Thank God. I was terrified you'd be another Deficio, but I have a normal color caster rather, right next to me.
Yeah, well, I think the level of analysis is going to be a little bit different between the two of those people, but it doesn't matter. That's why I got you next to me. In this game, we've got 2 teams fighting for their positions on the top, but it's Schalke on the blue side, already in blue, I should say, and yeah, I honestly think looking at Upset is definitely the focus of this game for me.
I feel like he's definitely going to be one that eyes will be on to try and step up, see how he can contribute, but also Nukeduck. We do not want to see him have a rough performance like he saw yesterday.
Yeah, you definitely want to see him stepping up a little bit more than what we saw. Now, their opponents are looking to reach the playoffs for the first time since the summer of 2015. It is Roccat looking to blast up those standings. And these guys, they have their troubles too, but they've been proving they're the real deal so far.
Yeah, they've been a little up and down, a little bit of mixed performances. Some weeks they go 2-0, some weeks they're going 0-2. And you compare that across the board with Schalke, who had a pretty steady 1-1 record every single week.
Consistency.
It's inconsistently consistent, yes, where Schalke seem to be beating teams that you would expect to be below them, and they're kind of struggling against teams that are above them. And as they enter the halfway mark, or now that they've passed the halfway mark, they want to really start racking up those wins, especially after what was a pretty devastating loss yesterday to Fnatic.
Yeah, it's a little bit not luck at all. It's a little bit tough, I should say. And the teams kind of showed that they could make these individual mistakes, not just from the AD carry position. Like Nukeduck, you really got to call him out for kind of failing there. But for Roccat, it does seem like it's going to go down a little bit more towards the drafting side of things. As they're mentioning on the desk, do they go for that 1-3-1? Do they go for the later team fighting? We're about to find out as we enter picks and bans.
All right, so Na already taken off the board. A lot of respect being shown towards Prophet. Another one of his big comfort picks has been Camille. Schalke, given that they have the first pick, may look to leave that open. Perhaps they have an answer to one of Prophet's big comfort picks, or perhaps they just take it off the board entirely, and it looks like that's what they're going to do.
So, the name of the game is try to ban out the Prophet. Now, for Rockat's side, we've already seen Zoe taken off. Do they stick to the mid lanes to try and get Nukeduck off of some comfort himself? But he's only played Zoe once, right? He's played a lot of champions, I should say, in that mid lane already.
Yeah, he has quite a deep champion pool. We've seen the LeBlanc come out from Nukeduck. We've also seen things like the Malzahar, the Cassio, the Zoe, the Ryze. He's played a wealth of champions. We know that Nukeduck is not afraid to really bring anything out, and he's very rarely afraid of his opponents. But right now, it does look like that the Azir is going to be one of the primary pickups for the side of Schalke, but we have seen in recent weeks the heavy priority on an early Sejuani to get Pride on something that more recently he's shown a lot more comfort.
Yeah, Pride, as a player, has also played a lot less champions than his counterpart. Memento's kind of picked up a little bit of this, a little bit of everything. You know, it's like a salad bar of a champion pool, but on the other hand, Pride's kind of stuck to the bread and butter of that Sejuani, and now with the Caitlyn off the table, they'll have a chance to pick it first, but maybe, just maybe, they're valuing something else.
Well, we did briefly talk about the Ryze. Taking it away from Blanc is a big bonus for Schalke as well, given that one of Blanc's best performing champions has been this Azir. You watch him in team fights, his consistent damage output is always very impressive, and he typically does pretty well in lane as well. So by Nukeduck having that, it's going to force Blanc to now pick something a little bit new, and something that we might not have seen before. Two of his most played champions are Ryze and the Azir. We've seen a bit of Corki from him, we've seen a bit of Galio, whose Galio wasn't that impressive. And perhaps Schalke are relying on that if Roccat look to try and pick that one up for themselves.
Certainly. Now for Roccat, They get to lock in on the Sejuani for Memento. That'll put Pride off of his comfort zone a little bit, but they also get the lock in of the Tristana. Now it is over to Schalke to see what they do. Do they go ahead for a jungler this time, or they risk even more being banned away? I think the Zac makes a lot of sense here.
And this is great to see from Pride. You talked about his smaller champ pool compared to a lot of other junglers, but he's going to continue being a meta slave, stick to what is currently strong, and it does offer a nice engage. You have the follow-up with the Azir as well. Schalke already setting themselves up for a bit of a teamfight composition that's earing more towards the scaling side.
Yeah, and Schalke going for the Braum takeaway from Norskeren to try and get him off the comfort zone as well. So it does seem like there's a lot of this for that going on in this pick and ban phase.
Now, Roccat have the choice of answering by picking up something like a Tahm Kench. It would struggle during the laning phase, but in the early weeks, it was often considered a strong pick into the Braum. Instead, they're going to take a big shift and go for a heavy disengage support in the form of Janna. I had a great conversation with Peter Dunn the other week about the value of when do you go for range supports versus engage supports and these kind of things. He says, mainly when you have disengage versus disengage, if you can pick a range support, they will always have the stronger disengage. And to champions like Braum, Janna can often be a very effective answer, very similar to that of Tahm Kench as well. So I think that's what they're going for. Right now, Roccat, they do have the scaling AD carry. They have an initiation in the form of Sejuani, but they don't have their mid laner. So Schalke can now look to pinch that role by banning out a couple of potential options.
They certainly can. One of those is going to be that Galio. Nukeduck didn't look so good on it himself yesterday. However, it's been Blanc they're trying to ban it away from, and for Roccat, a big departure in the Norskeren support for sure. He's pretty much only played those beefy tanks so far.
Certainly has.
Seeing something very different now. Two more AD carries banned out with the Varus and the Kalista up against Upset. What is Schalke's last ban going to be? More mid laners is the prediction.
Now what I'm expecting is, in terms of, I think Schalke could even consider banning away. Oh, okay, interesting. They would actually choose to ban away the Kassadin. I think that in terms of the mid to late game, Kassadin has an ability to outscale the Azir, but lane phase can often be very rough regardless. Nukeduck deciding that that could be a big pick that he doesn't want to have to play against, so they're going to take it off the board. I feel like Roccat are going to try and save their top lane pick for last, and I'm expecting a mid laner to come out right now, but instead they're going to pivot away. They are going to go for that teamfight style that we heard on the Analyst desk. They're not going to put all the emphasis on relying on Prophet to split push. They want him to be grouping up with the team, and they're going to be looking for fights.
And for Schalke's side, they already have a decent bit of initiation themselves, but also that disengage, as you mentioned, in the form of the Braum. Do they opt to take up the safer AD carry here? The Ezreal has been a pretty standard fallback in the event of a lot of AD carry bans, and we certainly see a lot of those up against Upset. As the timer ticks down, it is in fact going to be the Ezreal.
Interesting. Here in Europe, we've still seen a lot of value on the Ezreal. Many AD carries still consider him pretty strong. Hansheimer, I think, right now is one of the best laning Ezreals that we have in Europe. And Upset, as an individual, one of the big things that he's been criticized for is some of his positioning in teamfights, regularly getting caught out. On a very mobile champion like the Ez, you would imagine that's going to be less of an issue, and it will give them a very strong mid-game spike that they can look to try and take advantage of.
Yeah, they add in the Cho'Gath. This is a Vizicsacsi special as well. So all that's left to find out from Team Roccat is what is their mid laner going to be.
Could be the Veigar. We have seen this already during the regular season as an answer to the Azir. Alternatively, they could just go for something a little safer, something that Blanc has drafted before in the form of the Corki. I was hoping for the Veigar, but it seems that he's just going to stick to what he's already played.
All right, so we talked about scaling AD carry. They've now got an extra AD carry in the mix, but it's in the mid lane, of course, in the form of Blanc. This Roccat late game, is this looking pretty scary to you?
Oh yes, I feel like when you have double AD carry, you're looking at those 3-item spikes from the side of Roccat. They have decent laners. The Ornn isn't going to lose too hard to the Cho'Gath. Yes, he shouldn't have the same amount of push, but in terms of holding his own, Prophet should be absolutely fine. The only thing he has to worry about is potentially getting dived. In the middle lane, Corki's more than happy to just sit and farm. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go for an early Hex Drinker. And then you've even got a Tristana Janna bot lane, and when you have a ranged support, pushing becomes that much easier. So they're definitely gearing towards a solid laning phase, scaling up towards the mid-late game where they'll look for fights. But for the side of Schalke, they're not actually too different themselves. They've got a lot of engage. They have the Azir and Cho'Gath, who are fantastic late-game threats. But the bigger thing for me is looking at this Baron. Very fast Baron take with champions like the Cho'Gath. Azir, very quick to take down that objective as well. And I feel like they need to utilize this Ezreal to force a lot of mid-game fights where they should have a pretty strong spike.
Well, going in and trying to force those fights is not something that Upset has been shy of doing Mentioned, though, he'd been criticized for some of his positioning errors. And, of course, Ezreal, one of those forgiving champions, so it does seem like Schalke are trying to cover their bases here. We will see if they were able to claim victory here today up against Roccat. Blue on blue. And a whole lot of Deficios in the audience. Certainly excited for this one.
Oh, I'm sure Deficio certainly is. So, very big win needed for both these teams. Currently both sitting in the middle of the standings. Both of them suffered a loss yesterday. Roccat and Schalke, 4 and 5. They want to try and equalize that out today, Pyro.
Yeah. What of those two losses do you think was having the bigger impact on these teams, Vedius?
Ooh,
it's a hard call, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Roccat losing to H2K is always definitely a rough one. But the way in which Schalke lost kind of felt like the biggest self-disappointment. Nukeduck having a bad game was definitely not something that anyone really would have expected, given that he's been the rock of this team. Ever since the start of the split, Nukeduck has really been carrying some of the poor performances that we've seen from Pride, and the fact they didn't even have their main AD carry in their first week. But you could always fall back on this man in the middle lane. But he did go on the Galio. He died twice solo to Caps. And I'm sure that he's just going to be very frustrated with his own performance, because given the prestige and accolades that he does have here in Europe, he definitely doesn't want to hold that. He doesn't want to have that held against him.
Yeah, he's got to get the Year of the Duck back on track, but he is on a very comfortable champion this year. I think it's more up his alley. I mean, the guy can play just about everything, but he's going to shine on a champion that can really output some serious damage. However, it might not be so easy up against Blanc. Sand Soldier's already starting to come out early on, trying to push him back and away, but he's keeping nice and healthy.
And you'll notice that in terms of the early laning, Nukeduck is doing his best to get as many soldiers up, because he wants to try and match the wave clear that he does, that the Corki does have. Being an AD carry, you just rely on your auto attacks to push the wave when you have fleet footwork as well. It will give you a decent amount of sustain to mitigate some of the poke coming out from the Azir. We are on patch 8.3, so there were a couple of small changes to Azir, and that his Q cooldown at early levels is slightly longer, but also now every time you hit an individual with the Sand Soldier, you do draw minion aggro as well. So both things that Nukeduck will have to look to play around during this early laning phase.
Shouldn't be too much sweat for him, of course. And checking in on that bottom lane, as predicted, the range support definitely causing a few hard times for Upset and VandeR. Now, Blanc taking a lot of damage for some Sand Soldiers here. He's turning it back on to Nukeduck as well, but both mid laners bloodying each other.
You can see how much early damage minions do as well, which is why that change was rather significant during the laning phase. Blanc going for a bit of an early Doran shield to mitigate some of that poke, rather than going for something a little bit more aggressive. And you can clearly see his eyes are on farming. He wants to prioritize just scaling up, go for what we imagine to be an early Trinity Force, and then start building out those crit items, being a little bit more of a traditional AD carry later.
And you can see that Nukeduck definitely has his eyes on Blanc for sure, trying to get that early kill. Already got him pushed in, of course, a little safer with the likes of Azir, who can slide and glide his way back to safety. Checking back in on this bottom lane. HeaQ once more pushing them back, but VandeR does catch him on a Q.
And it's important to recognize these different pushing lanes, because Schalke don't have 3 losing lanes. Mid, Nukeduck holding his own. You'll see a lot of back and forth, but also Chachi up in the top. The wave clear on the Cho'Gath will just keep this Ornn underneath the tower. So Pride needs to invest his early vision towards the top side of the map. Alternatively, he wants to be aware of the possible dives down bot. We're seeing significantly less stopwatches, Pyra, which means that diving that bot side could be a big threat that Roccat or Schalke need to be aware of.
Yep. Can't tell the time for ganking if you don't have the watch in your pocket. Now Vizicsacsi going on a little bit of a warding spree himself, gets spied out by Prophet. Of course, Chachi very comfortable on that Cho'Gath as a champion. A couple of pushing lanes. It does give Pride still some opportunities, I feel like, to gank even in the mid, just because he can go so far out. But it's difficult up against a Corki, right? I feel like down to the bottom might be the easiest angle for him to try and make a play.
I feel like, really, for both junglers, the best lanes to try and gank would be the top. That's where you have the most setup. But gank a Corki, very challenging. You're trying to gank a Janna, Tristana, Braum. There's like so much mobility and disengage down the bottom lane. It's just a jungler's nightmare. So I can't imagine a huge amount of early jungle attention unless it's towards the top side of the map.
Well, Memento might be looking to oblige you. Taking his time about it, waiting to go over the wall with the blast going, has his blue buff. And let's see if he's going to make a move in onto Chachi, who does not spy him, but he's playing safe nonetheless. It's a game of chicken right now in the brushes. Jungler and top laner. Prophet is trying to look tasty here.
His gentleman's senses are tingling. He feels something is amiss. You can see the mana has been picked up for Prophet, and here we go.
Okay, Q gets it out, forces the flash. Memento chasing him out. So Chachi in the end loses one summoner spell for his trouble, but that's about it.
So there was the early pressure that we said if the junglers were to gank anyway, it would be towards the top side. The Memento was the first one, but now it is Pride that is able to punish Memento towards that early game. And we need to speak a little bit about Pride, because you look at some of his early statistics, and this guy has actually had some pretty significant performances.
Yeah, and it's crazy considering how little time he actually spends around those lanes. That jungle proximity number really sitting towards the lower end for junglers in Europe, but he still gets a lot done. He's still participating in a lot of early kills. And that's impressive to see from a guy that was struggling to find his footing just months ago even.
Exactly that, and this really shows the development that this jungler has made with this kind of experience and support that he does have on Schalke. He was a jungler that in the challenger scene, mechanically, very good. He was very good at building his own leads, but he didn't really have that good macro sense. He didn't have the understanding of where he needed to be, when he needed to be there, but being a part of this roster, he's better recognized, okay, these are the kind of champions I need to be playing. This is how I can punish my opponent jungler. This is when I can look to do it. Now that he's hit level 6, he's looking to ward top. Thought he may have looked for a potential gank, but instead, his focus is just on giving a bit of safety towards Vizicsacsi.
He's not the only one that's definitely grown as a player, however. His opposite number, Memento, has kind of undergone a different sort of transformation, right? We've seen him in and out of the LCS, and he's now become more of this team leader. He wants to step up and be the utility guy that can set his lanes up to succeed. Prior to that, he really liked to play the sort of carry style, similar to what Pride used to do back in Challenger, and he's really developed himself as a player.
That's very true, Pyro, because Memento, as an individual, loves to invest a lot of his early game time into vision. You'll see so many wards littered primarily across the river coming from the Roccat jungler, because he wants to try and provide safety and control for his laners to play in a way that is comfortable for them. He's not about ganking a lot in the early game, and you'll see a lot more of his impact come in the mid to late game, where he leads his team into good objective setups and smart decision making. We saw a bit of a drop in that yesterday against H2K, where they kept trying to force these fights, which their comp wasn't really designed to do, and we did hear from Freddie in the interview where he felt the team just kind of lost focus. But you would have to imagine that coming into today's matchup, they want to get revenge against Schalke, especially after right in the beginning of the split, where they ended up losing to VandeR on AD carry.
Yeah, VandeR kind of popped off on that one. We've seen Upset still make some pretty good plays, but I feel like that might have been the best performance we've seen from a Schalke AD carry for a little bit. No shade intended. But yeah, at the very first week, I mean, it was an unfortunate situation for Schalke. They still managed an incredible win on that one. Let's see if they can maybe do it again. So Pride, he gets for a hop in. It's going to be Blanc and Memento that go intercept him, though. But we've got a bit of a fight in this mid lane. Pride trying to walk it up, but he gets stopped up. The Goose Frozen Emperor's Divide is flashed over by Memento. Ults for Summoners traded, and nobody dies.
Now you can see how challenging it is for both junglers to gank this middle lane. Blanc very easily able to dodge out from the engage from Pride, and he almost got punished as a result of Memento being nearby. He's not he is not stopping Pride. Knows that his mid laner has the push, knows that Memento has no flash, and is able to successfully steal away another Raptor camp. But it was the patience on Pride to not burn the flash. He knew that Nukeduck was there to protect him, and Nukeduck, by using the ultimate, he was able to force the flash out from Memento, and his jungler could walk away safely.
Yeah, nice and easy. Okay, so with one flash forced on the jungler, none in the mid lane, however. And Blanc will have teleport up not too long, but we're still in this laning phase. It's still going to be looking towards the later stages of the game. We talked about this in the draft. It's all about that scaling. Of these two teams, though, who do you think will make the first move?
Ooh, I feel like in terms of proactiveness, Schalke would be the kind of team that would look to try and make that first play. Roccat are much more about, if they can, they want to try and win without actually getting kills. That's what we've seen from previous weeks. Maybe yesterday wasn't a great indication of that, but typically their mid-game has really impressed me in the way in which they set up fantastic vision around things like the Baron and the Dragon, the way they consistently maintain control over the river. And just have a quick look through the bottom side of the river right now. 3 control wards already littered across this area of the map to allow the pushing bot lane to set up for the Infernal Drake that is currently on the map, and overall to just give Roccat a little bit more control. And this is something that they have consistently shown throughout previous weeks. And I feel like that they're just much more patient of a team, whereas Schalke, they have a couple more playmakers, they have a couple superstars, and they're the kind of team that aren't afraid to try and make that play and get that early kind of edge.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll be the ones trying to counter-make the play. Roccat definitely have their eyes on the Infernal Dragon. Looks like we have a quick pause coming in. Officials talking to Upset on stage, and We'll figure out what's going on with that one in just a few. But yeah, it's a slower game. It's more controlled, but there has been a few attempts, right? We saw that already with Schalke trying to make a play in the mid lane courtesy of Pride. If they can build themselves up some early lead, when you have similar scaling, I mean, that's always going to help.
The only big thing that Schalke have to be a little concerned about is the Ezreal. When you compare him up against the Tristana, when you get to the late game, Tristana will have that bigger impact. The important thing to recognize is that a 3-item Ezreal, once he's completed the Mana Mune, is often considered to be stronger than many crit AD carries at that point in the game. Very specifically this period. And because you run the Kleptomancer, you get to that 3-item spike much quicker than a lot of crit AD carries often do. So they'll be sitting on something like an Infinity Edge, maybe a Static Shiv, but the Ez will be sitting on those 3 items. And it's at that point that the Ezreal has that bit of an advantage. He'll be slightly stronger in team fights. He'll be able to throw out a lot of effective poke, along with the Azir that can make things very challenging for Roccat when trying to group up around the objectives. And that's where we kind of need to see Schalke being proactive. So I feel like it fits in their style of they're willing to make plays, they're willing to try and force things, but also they have a comp that, if it gets past the 35-minute mark, will struggle in terms of the late game.
Very true, but still drafting towards the strengths that these guys have now. There's a quick personal pause. Is going to go back into game, and perfect timing for you, Vedius, and we're back on the Vision game. Let's see what Roccat decide to do, making moves out with Norskeren and Memento into the enemy jungle. So we're checking on the mid.
Ooh, that's a lot of damage coming down onto Blanc. He did have the package, wasn't able to use it though.
That's too bad.
Yeah, that's a feels bad man right there. Memento, again, focusing very heavily on early vision. Already, just look at the control wards being picked up from Roccat in their inventories. If that doesn't tell you that Freddy likes to teach his team about vision, I'm not entirely sure what will. But again, just to echo this is what gives Roccat such a powerful mid-game, because it becomes so difficult for their opposition to make plays, given that Roccat often have so much control around the map.
Yeah. As long as they keep their eyes on the prize, focus on that phase of the game when they're going to be the strongest and keep to the plan. We're 10 minutes on the clock, though. It's Schalke that have the lead right now. This is mostly off the farming. Of course, the Kleptomancy on Ezreal is certainly not going to hurt any.
That's very true.
Does start to make some big differences. Oh, let's take a look in the mid lane here. Pride looking for Blanc. Whoa, there's an ultimate. Memento finding Nukeduck, and he's going to burn a summoner, but go down nonetheless. Blanc picks up kill number 1 with a little assist from Memento, looking for 2, but the Zac is bouncing away.
Fantastic punish there from Memento. It was Schalke that tried to make a gank happen in the mid lane. Nukeduck just following up on his jungler, wanted to try and get some kind of force a flash out from Blanc or to get some kind of pressure down. They were not expecting Memento to come up from the bot side, which is where Roccat had full vision control around the map. They effectively punished the dark side that Schalke couldn't see. So if you just toggle the vision, you can see that Schalke have no idea that this jungler is coming up from behind them. Nukeduck feels very confident that he can look to make that play, and an instant punish, allowing Roccat to get themselves first blood.
Yeah, that was one of those quick table turners right there. Blanc hardly took any damage off the back of it. It was a nice dodge out from him to avoid the gank attempt from Pride. So Rocket's starting to equalize on that gold, pretty much negates the difference in farming, and HeaQ and Norskeren back on the bottom, still putting in work on this tower to get pushed in. And that first blood bought the Hex Drinker for Blanc too, so we're all going to start to see some more defensiveness coming in to keep him alive.
He's got a Sheen on top of that as well. This is going to make the laning phase that much harder for Nukeduck, especially without his flash. Interesting that he would decide not to go for the cleanse, as we've seen that as a common answer to champions like the Sejuani, whose initiation is really something to be feared really consistently throughout the game. So he felt that he needed that heal, and as we saw in that last play, definitely was not as valuable as he would have liked.
Yeah, more of a decision-making mistake as opposed to the mechanical mistakes that we saw from him yesterday on the Galio. Nonetheless, still some question marks around Nukeduck right now, not quite living up to the hype at the moment.
Well, he still has a lot of the game left. He is playing that Azir, who can offer a huge amount of value in these later game team fights. And remember, Schalke, their composition very good at forcing Baron, especially around the 25-minute mark when we talked about that 3-item Ezreal. Wouldn't be surprised to see Schalke playing towards that win condition as we see another skirmish in the jungle.
Yeah, both mid laners making tracks towards it, but Blanc's got the Gatling gun on, trying to chase him. And now there's fights all over the place, and Tristana is going to get caught up for just a second. Gets the hop, true shot barrage, dodged out. Monsoon from Norskeren with the last of his mana, but Memento is looking to come around the side, throws the ice bola, finds themselves a Braum. Blanc's here. It looks like that's going to be it just for now. Pride wants to join the party as well, looking for the hop in, but no will not find it. Everybody wanted to get involved, but they walk away empty-handed.
Now, because Blanc had priority through the jungle path, he was able to get down towards the bottom lane much faster than Nukeduck and Pride were. 4 members of Roccat were able to successfully burn both summoner spells away from Upset, and it will allow Roccat to continue on with this early pressure. Roccat playing this early game extremely well right now. We talked about how Schalke may have been the more proactive, and while we have seen Pride try to make a couple of ganks here and there, it is Memento that has been more successful. He had that one gank in the top lane, which resulted in the flash. He had the counter gank against Pride's initial gank, and then he had that second one where they secured the kill onto Nukeduck. So Memento really putting the number down onto Pride right now.
Yep, Memento does get pulled in by Pride as he tried to get the steal away on the red buff, so not today, he says. But you're right to give praise to the Roccat jungler, definitely making good plays for his team early on, trying to keep them in the lead. Now, a pretty hot contested objective on this map will be that Infernal Dragon. You talked about it earlier, how much vision Roccat was setting up. Memento clears away the Scuttle Crab, so they'll have even more. But look at where Schalke are, trying to position around the side. I expect there'll be probably some skirmishes before this Drake goes down.
That is definitely what Roccat would like, but for the time being, they're going to continue pushing. If we could just pan over to the bot lane tier 1 tower for the time being, that's the thing that Rockat's mainly interested in for the time being. You can see already very close to about 50% of its HP, and this is largely due to the consistent push that both HeaQ and Norskeren have been able to enable, thanks to the fact that they have the Janna, but also a roaming Blanc, and all this vision invested towards the bottom side. Rockat's whole early game plan has been, let's play towards our pushing lane, secure an early first tower, and then secure ourselves an Elder. Now, Schalke may choose to go for a lane swap, and then take advantage of the fact that Chachi has consistent push in the top and try and secure themselves first tower, and then turn that into a Rift Herald. And I think that would be a pretty effective answer to really mitigate the so far pretty dominant early game coming out from Rockat's bot lane.
We'll see if Schalke do opt to take it. There's a little bit of damage already in that top tower on the Roccat side, so they might be able to knock it down a little faster if they could. First tower blood, of course, very important to try and secure for themselves. Schalke, though, taking advantage of a moment where Roccat aren't at home to try and clear away some of these wards, so they might be able to turn things around here. Not going to opt to start that dragon just yet. Neither team feeling super confident that they can get away with it.
Schalke now reclaimed a lot of the vision towards the bot side, and they're actually going to be the first ones to kick off this Drake. Actually love this adaptation from Schalke, rather than just waiting for the dragon and tower to eventually go down. Take advantage of the fact that they know HeaQ wants to go back to base. Memento went towards topside to clear out his red buff, and Schalke immediately are able to punish. And yes, this means that Nukeduck may be a little bit delayed on getting his blue. It may even get stolen away from him, but overall, the team gains definitely favorable for that of Schalke.
Yeah, nicely played. You got 2 scaling comps right now. You definitely want that extra AD and AP going on later into the game. We got a Mountain Drake that'll spawn the next, so both teams will be looking to contest it. But so much vision invested by Roccat comes to nothing, Vedius.
Well, just due to timing, really. I guess they put a little too much focus on securing the first tower before the Infernal Drake. Unfortunately for them, will result in the loss of the objective, but Mountain Drake will be up next, and I'm sure that's something that they will look to try and contest. But now a lot of pings coming down onto Rift Herald from the side of Roccat. This could be another avenue with which they could look to play through, but I feel like their eyes are still towards that bot town. We need to see when Blanc gets that package. Will he look for another roam bot? Will he try to force his opposition away and then secure that early tower? Or will he use it elsewhere? Because so far we haven't really seen him take much advantage of the Corki passive.
No, not quite yet. He is still firing away. A few more pot shots on this tower, but he's got to be really careful not to check too deep into the Sand Soldiers of Nukeduck, who's just preoccupied with trying to pick up his blue buff right now. Had to defend, and Pride was taking it for a walk around the jungle. Gonna leave Memento a chance to try and get in and around this backside, start off on the Krugs, and maybe, just maybe, he'll be looking to go down for the gank. Blanc is also at his heels.
You can already see Schalke recognizing the potential bot lane dive, immediately disengaging. Pride already on his way to assist both Upset and VandeR, but Roccat, they've played towards this objective all throughout the early game, and now they will finally secure it for themselves.
Slow, 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 but they make it all happen. And Upset and VandeR, they actually want to go all in here. The Glacial Fissures dodged out by Norskeren, and Upset and VandeR thought they had the play, but no dice.
Slight misplay there from VandeR, getting the knock-up onto Janna. Definitely could have forced a summoner spell out. But you got to remember that Norskeren also running the cleanse. A bit of an interesting summoner spell choice there. Now we see Pride off on the flank.
Tries to get the flank off on Blanc, doesn't find it. Memento even walks away as well, and Nukeduck's a little bit low to try and keep this tower back, with Blanc able to just fire shot after shot into the back of him. And here is the dual lane coming to join, or at least just the Janna, the Tristana also. And now you can see with HeaQ to join the fray, they should be able to push this one back unless the counter engage comes in. Pride tries to get them down and can't quite get in, so he goes out with the ultimate. Chachi is here to defend, but all of a sudden, it's turned into a war of attrition in the mid lane.
Nice roam down from Chachi. They recognized that the tower was going to be secured from Roccat with 4 members sieging onto the tower. All they had to do was clear out the minion wave. And with Cho'Gath there and Pride sacrificing his ultimate, they're able to successfully defend. Quick thinking there. Will enable both Nukeduck to go back to base, now return to lane, and only the small loss of, well, I say small loss, still fairly significant, but early loss of their first tower down in the bottom lane. Now we see the swaps coming out from Roccat. Their eyes are set on that mid-tier, that tier 1 up in the top lane.
There we go. Meanwhile, Memento also trying to solo out the Rift Herald. Not going to be spotted out by anyone. Or Scuttler vision granted to the Roccat team. So it's very much an objective-based game. This is what you talked about in the pick and ban, especially what Roccat likes to do. Set up the vision, look to play the objectives. The late game is when the team fights happen, so we got some time on the board.
But that's it, Pyro. You've got to give fans hope. You've got to tell them what to look forward to, and it's definitely going to be fighting. You've got 2 scaling compositions. They're going to be ready to battle it out, to duel. You've got to keep your eyes on the items at all times, because it's the power spikes that people are waiting for before they force a fight.
Yeah, they're just kind of waiting for the time when they feel ready to fight. It's all like the training montages right now, and maybe this is where the fight goes in, looking for Pride. They collapse on top of him, and he's going to get popped in little globules as he gets knocked away. Maybe not. VandeR, Nukeduck, Vizicsacsi, the cavalry has arrived, and they are looking for Blanc, and they blank out his health bar. Upset getting a kill.
And it was Roccat that initially tried to force the fight, but it is Schalke that ended up coming out on top. Fantastic punish there from the Schalke squad as they have their eyes set on this tier 1 in the mid.
All right, extra destruction, they can try to knock it down here. Let's see if they have enough damage. They should do. Just a few more shots is all they need, and Memento and HeaQ were not going to be able to stop them. Meanwhile, Upset all alone towards the top. It looks like Schalke, they hit the gas pedal.
The Muramana completed for Upset gives him such a big spike in damage. Meant that once they had the Braum passive applied, all they had to do was lock down Blanc, and they were very quickly able to pick up that kill. And now Schalke claiming a lot of control over the map. Remember, Chachi kept pushing in onto that top lane. It was already low from the early work that he had done. And let's have a look back at how this fight kicked off. Now, Pride, he feels pretty confident here. He thinks, okay, I've got my bot laner roaming down. I've got Azir on his way. Surely I can wait. Oh, no, my team doesn't actually get here first, but I can buy time. I'm a big tank. I can soak up this damage. And unfortunately for Blanc, he ended up using his flash just a little bit too late. He wasn't expecting to get hit by that final passive proc from the Braum. And then with the follow-up CC coming out from Vizicsacsi, Schalke were able to secure themselves a kill and 2 very early towers.
Yep, Chachi definitely there when they need him to, and he definitely knows what to do.
Of course he did.
Yep, nicely done.
Well played. Always it feels bad, man, when your red buff gets stolen away from you.
From downtown. Ugh, talk about getting upset.
Oh, Pyra.
I have my few. Yeah. Well, he's not just blue Ezreal, he's also a little bit red here. Memento find VandeR and Pride in his own jungle. And
now remember what we said, Pyra. 3 item spike for Ezreal. He's almost there. He's well on his way to completing the Blade of the Ruined King. We've already seen some of the team fight power that this Schalke squad does have. Baron is also alive, and Schalke are setting up vision around this objective. So what you'll see them doing is pushing a lot. They'll push in mid, they'll then roam back towards Baron, they'll try and gain some vision control, and then they'll move back towards the Baron and keep these lanes pushed up to secure themselves and maintain control around this big objective. And that's where the power of this Cho'Gath, this Azir, really comes in. The threats that they have around this Baron is something that Roccat have to be afraid of. They have to stall out for longer. They have to wait for Tristana to really get to that outscale point where he'll just shred through this entire Schalke roster.
yeah, in the meantime, they're starting to lose out on some objectives. The Mountain Dragon falls in favor of Schalke. Even though Roccat still tried to push a few minions up towards the top, Upset was able to clip the wave out, and now he's going to be able to clean up. So this Ezreal definitely starting to come online. Still some time Roccat are going to need. The game plan's kind of been delayed a little bit here.
And it all came down to that one pick that Schalke were able to find around the Baron area. You'll see this constant back and forth of vision. We're entering the Baron dance zone, Pyra. That's always I want to say it's one of the less exciting moments of League of Legends. It's not quite the bloodthirstiness. It's all about the patience, the zoning, the
Well, it's the expectation, and also it is exciting if one team ends up throwing it, but
that's where it gets
that does really happen. But in the meantime, they're still focusing on this mid lane, right? They've got Shelly out, ready to charge, and finally this mid tower should fall. It's so incredibly low, and even though there's a couple of minions here, 1 or 2 more shots is going to do it. Roccat are able to secure it. That opens up the map a little bit more for them. Maybe gives them a chance to try and fight it out for this Baron a little bit easier.
Poor Shelly, once again, sacrifices her life for the greater good of her team.
It's just unfair, man. You kill the Rift Herald, and then it fights for you.
I know.
It can't, it's like some like messed up version of Pokemon. It's
yeah, except she knows even fewer words than many Pokemon do, which is a real shame. She's not given that opportunity for education, is she?
We don't really hear much from Shelly. You'd think she'd probably be like asking for, you know, maybe some overtime wages in really long games.
Well, she does secure the early tower. Oh, I keep saying early tower. 23 minutes in now.
That's very early.
She secures a tower for the side of Roccat, equalizing that out. Chachi now looking to try and gain another tower advantage down the bottom lane.
He doesn't care about profit at all. He can just tank up some damage, walk it out. Chachi's very confident on the likes of Cho'Gath. We saw his all-time career stats on this champion before. He plays it before it was cool.
He did. Now Blanc looking for a bit of a roam down ball. Wants to utilize this package effectively. Yet to do it this game. The last time he did ended up with him dying. So I imagine he doesn't want to repeat that setup.
I gotta be careful where you stick the package.
It's definitely true. Now again, items. Keep your eyes on them. 2 have been completed for Nukeduck with the Leandries and the Nash's Tooth. Blanc yet to complete any big crit items. Same for HeaQ. He does have the 2-item spike, but again, this is what we were talking about. Ezreal with the Kleptomancy allows you to get to that 3-item spike much quicker than these often crit AD carries, and that's where you're considered stronger than the crit AD carries. That specific point, and that's what Schalke want to try and take advantage of. So while they are losing a couple of structures, the gold is still very even. And this is where the Baron will be such a pivotal factor in determining the outcome of this game.
But it's so many little advantages kind of going in Schalke's favor, right? They've got that Mountain Drake for the extra shred. You mentioned the Cho'Gath. I feel like Nukeduck, though, is probably going to be the biggest factor in trying to dish that damage to the Baron. But he's still sitting on the 2 items himself, and we haven't really seen that much out of the Duck this game. Early in the mid, bit off a little more than he could chew. See if he can redeem himself, especially for yesterday.
He's certainly been doing pretty well in the farm department. Really all across the board, can be said, same for both teams. That really has been the nature of this early game. A lot of farming, a lot of focus on getting to the later game portion, completing those core items before the fights truly start. And now eyes will be on Schalke as Upset solo up in the top lane. 1v2, how does he get out of this one?
Oh boy, tries to fire a few shots. Let's see, Arcane shifts, a couple of teleports flashing, but he's going the wrong way right now. Let's see if HeaQ Norskeren can fire him back. He tries to get the outplay, and in comes Vizicsacsi, but not before he's gonna fall. HeaQ trying to get out of dodge. Well, Chachi's knocked up and locked up, and Profit taking him down. They're not done yet, though. Memento flashing the wall. Glacial Prison, VandeR running for his life, sends the knock up. The rest of Schalke are scattered.
Very quick punish coming out from Roccat onto Upset. He's sitting in a side lane. He's trying to push it out. He thinks that with the vision that his team has provided throughout the river that he will be fine. But Roccat take the unique route through the Tribush. They come up where Schalke doesn't have vision. Upset ends up losing his life, and as Chachi tries to save him, he ends up dropping too. Now Roccat have position around the Baron. They may not look to start it right now. They know they have the ability to outscale. Instead, they're just going to use it to reset, buy more time, clear out these waves, and put more pressure onto Schalke.
Takes a lot of patience for a team to not try and take the advantageous moment. Let's see how this all began. So HeaQ and Norskeren.
This is what we talked about with the route. They went through the Tribush where there was no vision for Schalke, and they, again, just passed in a way where Upset couldn't see what Roccat was trying to do. With the 2 members of a Janna and a Tristana, locking down this Ezreal becomes a lot easier, and the fact that HeaQ's just able to get out with his life as well is massive for this Roccat squad.
Now, what were you saying earlier about positioning for Upset?
That's exactly, that was going to be my next discussion point, Pyro, because we looked at Upset coming into this game. We thought, on this champion, in this game, he needs to focus on not getting caught out. Because we've seen it multiple times, it's cost teams games. Let's see if it'll cost him once again.
All right, probably going in. That Baron is very dangerously low, but so is Memento. True Shot Barrage comes in, and Roccat, they're going to peel off this Baron. However, Memento is in danger of dying right now. Baron is going to go regen, but now Roccat have to back away from the big purple worm. Schalke are a lot healthier than they are. Monsoon coming on to try and keep them healthy, and Schalke, they're going to try and start the Baron off right now. Let's see if they've got the damage to finish it. Rejuvenated Roccat's side. The Baron dance is taking a turn for the dangerous here, Vedius.
You've got to look at the ultimates that are available. The engage from Roccat is still ready. And the same can be said for some of the Schalke members, but Pride used his ulti to just get into the middle of the pit. Unfortunately for both teams, no one really gains anything, but Schalke, they have priority over mid, so they can just run towards this tower and they should be able to secure it.
Yeah, they've got the damage to make it happen. Covering their tracks. Looks like Roccat are going to go for a collapse here. Norskeren and Memento around the side, but Pride, they're going to be backing off through the safe way of the jungle. HeaQ, Memento, Ice Bullet connects. Let's see if they have the damage on the Zac. No, he flashes away. Looks like that's going to be all she wrote for now.
So Roccat are even able to defend this tower. And we're seeing how valuable this dragon is, but Schalke, they're on a bit of a clock right now because these big crit items are going to be coming through soon for Roccat, or rather the completion of the crit build, as I should say. So Schalke, they feel pressure now. They're going to start this one up. Look at all the control walls in the pit for Roccat.
3 in the back. That's just to take so much time away now. Schalke, they're trying to get this, but the Baron going incredibly low, and the rest of Schalke are as well. True-shot barrage coming out from upset. Nukeduck is burning away, and the Vizicsacsi is able to pick up the Baron. However, I don't know if the rest of his team is going to get out nice and safe. Nukeduck's down, Roccat trying to collapse. What an all-around fight on multiple fronts. Ends up being a 1-for-2 in favor of Roccat, but they lose out on the Baron.
The Baron goes in favor of Schalke. They decide to force it. They utilize the power of Cho'Gath to secure it, but that was very messy, Pyro. All over the shop, members dropping left, right, and center. The coordination just fell off, but Schalke, they got what they wanted. They got out with many of their members, and Roccat, they're left to pick up the pieces in the form of a Drake.
It's like what Freddie was saying a little bit earlier. When the team falls into chaos, it doesn't really work out well for them. They're going to need to do a little bit more. Gold's still very close to even, but the Baron buff, important objective, picked up by Schalke. Let's see how it all began again. It was in plain sight of everyone.
So this is how you inflate your vision score, for those of you at home. But Schalke, they just commit to the objective. Janna isn't anywhere near the fight yet, but the main damage dealers are. Look at all the poke coming out from Blanc right now, throwing out a lot of damage, especially onto Nukeduck, who does not get a great Shurima shuffle and is forced out of the fight. But while Blanc is off to the side, the rest of Schalke are finishing off that Baron. And it meant that Roccat, they were just a little divided in their focus. The fact that Nukeduck was out of the fight should have been enough, and Blanc could have turned his attention over to both Pride and Chachi, maybe getting a kill, maybe stopping this Baron. But they don't. They were divided, allowed Schalke to get away with the Baron, but they weren't able to secure it for Chachi or Nukeduck.
Yeah, I don't think Chachi knew there was a fight going on. He just kind of kept on the Baron the entire time. Ended up securing it up, and this is where the big tank sustain wars start to come in too. You look at the top laners, the junglers, there's Warmogs everywhere. And that's going to be a lot harder to shred through things, even with the crits.
QSS now picked up for HeaQ as well. Really excited to see how these next few fights play out as Blanc is up in the top lane. But the Baron buff has been, or is available rather, for Schalke. They're now grouping up as a 5-man unit. They have their eyes set on this tier 2, and then just zoning the team of Roccat away, looking for an engage even.
And they might find Profit here. He's going to have to burn his flash, and Braum burns his ultimate. VandeR trying to make this play happen, but alter the jungle. 5-man death ball, but it looks like it's getting turned on right here. The Forge God is coming out. He's going to knock up 3. Can Roccat turn this fight? Those late games are where they have been oh so good, and Schalke split up right here. Emperor's Divide keeps Memento from going a little bit further. VandeR hopping forward. The big rocket is not going to be enough. Blocked by the Unbreakable, but Blanc is not done yet, and he picks him off. HeaQ hopping forward. Gotta be careful. Dodging out the Rupture. Vizicsacsi flashes are being burned all over the place right now. Schalke in full retreat. The Baron push turned into disaster.
And that's it, Pyro. Schalke, all they had to do was use the Baron to siege onto the base of Roccat. Instead, they chose to try and force a fight, and Roccat were more than happy to take it. After disengaging, after waiting for Schalke to burn all of their engaged tools, that is when they looked to turn around and find the successful fight. Blanc utilizing the poke power of this Corki to just slowly chip away at this Schalke roster until eventually they can turn things in their favor. So, look at Blanc up in the top side, yet to really be involved in the fight. And when HeaQ gets caught up, you think this is going to be dire. But then a big ultimate from Profit sets up nicely for the rest of the team to recognize, okay, Schalke's now split up. We can start chasing them down. Utilize the mobility from the Corki, keep throwing out the damage. And VandeR, He may be the only target that ends up dropping, but in the bigger picture, Roccat successfully stall out the Baron and even win a fight.
Yeah, fantastically played by this team. Very patient and recognizing when they could take the fight. So as a result, the gold lead's in their favor. We're starting to see more of these item spikes coming. You talked about that window closing. Well, the Tristana had the 3-item spike, the Corki had the spike, and now they're looking for the fight, trying to find VandeR here. There's just CC everywhere on this map, and VandeR trying to outlast it all, but he will not be able to do it. Blanc picks up another, looking for Nukeduck now. He slides and glides away, but that tier 2 is going to be under fire in just a moment.
Roccat not afraid to continue forcing fights. Chachi was down in the bottom lane, but he had no teleport to join the rest of his team, and Roccat grouping up as a 5-man unit are looking to secure the first inhibitor of the game.
Oh, Roccat looking to try and get some revenge from earlier in the split. Starting off their series with a loss. It was Schalke that took them out last time around, but this team, you can see the growth in this Roccat squad. You can see that they have found a way to stick to their plan and just outfight, as we see here.
Look in the bottom lane, Chachi just clearing out a wave, doesn't have the teleport. Oh, he does in fact have the teleport, uses it, but it's just unfortunately too late. The damage has already been done, my mistake. He did try his best to join the rest of the team, but Roccat was just so quick to engage, and they knew the VandeR didn't have his flash available, so they were very, they just knew that if they kept hitting, he was sure to drop. He wasn't gonna get away from that CC chain. And they secured themselves the kill, they secured themselves their first inhibitor, and things are now in dire straits for that of Schalke.
Yeah, they've got a giant void monster on their team, but they're going to need him to get even bigger at this point if they want to try and hang on. Late game scaling on both sides, 4 to 5 in the standings. I mean, both teams had a lot of similar things going for them, but it's Roccat that have shown their communication, their coordination has been better.
It certainly has been, but you're also seeing the same sort of issues that we've been seeing from Schalke. Individual misplays. They had such a great position in the mid game to play around the Baron. Upset gets caught. They tried to rush the Baron, they actually secure it, and then they tried to force a fight. And it's just these small decisions that have allowed Roccat to regain control of the map after falling into a deficit, find these opportunities, and now they're in a position to consistently punish Schalke and look for as many fights as they want.
And they know when Schalke are trying to make a play on him. We saw that little death brush right there, but there was a ward behind, making sure that Roccat knew that there were Schalke members nearby. The next Baron about a minute away, the Elder Dragon only 30 seconds. With Roccat controlling the map, they get to decide where the next fight's gonna be.
Very likely that they will want to get the Baron for themselves. That is the bigger objective when it comes to sieging. But with the Elder Dragon spawning that much quicker, they may prioritize it and try to secure it for themselves. Schalke are going to do their best to push out this mid wave so that they don't concede full control over that objective. And you'll note the package going down towards the bot side. It's already starting to stack up a pretty big wave. Roccat want to try and make sure that they have as many pushing waves as possible to make things as awkward as possible for Schalke as they look to contest.
Yeah, ping's now on the Elder Dragon as it spawns up. Blanc's actually going to start this one off, and it looks like this might be where Schalke have to try and make a stand. You see them coming for it, but the Dragon already starting to fall. Roccat not overly committing here.
Exactly, and Roccat don't need to. They just need to be patient. Look at the bottom wave again, and look at the mid. You have the big super minion here, acting as an effective pushing presence. You also have this big stack in the bottom that Schalke are just choosing to sacrifice. They have to stay grouped as a 5-man unit. The TP is coming up soon for Chachi, but it's still not something that they want to run the risk of. So now they're going back towards the Baron. I feel like it would be very dangerous for them to force that objective. Instead, they're going to try and look for a pick.
Schalke trying to give themselves an advantage to try and not lose out on the next fight. It could be disaster for them if they give it up. We're 36.5 minutes on this clock. Not keen on pulling this trigger, especially with all the damage that Rocket's bringing at this point. Fundis comes up, but Roccat, they can continue to just try and force out Schalke's hand on the Baron, on the Dragon. They've got options.
Roccat needs to go back towards these side lanes now because bot is going to start slow pushing in favor of Schalke. Top is starting to build up, but Pride, he's just going to force a fight.
Yeah, however, Profity's going to be tanking on the front line. Let's see if that's enough for Roccat to try and turn things around. VandeR throws on the Unbreakable. And the call of the Forge God is coming. Let's see, they get a 3-man knock-up, and it's a bloodbath in the mid lane. Roccat say, you want to go now? We'll end this right here. Hopping forward, that's a double kill over from Blanc, and they don't need no Dragon. They don't need no Baron. The base is open.
Absolute obliteration coming from Roccat. They rip through Schalke. They have the Nexus in their eyes, and they're looking to take the win.
Roccat looking for some revenge, for revenge, I should say, from the start of the split. Also, we're looking for some redemption from yesterday. They absolutely find it. One clean fight at the end of the game. That's exactly what they needed. And Roccat go 5-5.
Pyra, in our caster predictions today, it was only you that had the faith in Roccat, and it was you who proved to be successful. Roccat, they found a huge win over Schalke as we enter the second half of the split. Both teams playing towards late game. We talked about how there were going to be these explosive fights, but the crucial point was very much around that Baron area. For Schalke, they needed to secure it. They needed to use it to turn it into a big enough gold lead to then end the game. But just a couple of small individual misplays, Upset getting caught out, trying to force a fight rather than just utilizing the pushing power of the Baron itself, allowed Roccat to find these great fights, get the items that they needed, and then the moment they saw an opportunity, they just run it down mid, they found the 4-0, and they straight up ended the game.
It was just more experience, more focus in those crucial fights. And when you have teams so similar in composition, like you said, it comes down to who just plays it better, pound for pound, individually. And this was the Schalke story that we've seen for a couple of weeks now, just getting sunk by small mistakes that turn into snowballs.
And the disappointment now, you can see on Upset's face. The first 0-2 week for Schalke, they've been able to get themselves 1-1 every single week since the start of the split. And you have to wonder how this is going to affect them, especially when you have the form of Upset, who I feel really is carrying a lot of pressure on his shoulders, mainly towards himself, because he feels like he needs to be the one to perform.
Yeah, he certainly feels that way, but for Roccat, I think everyone are the ones to perform for sure. Now, we want to know who you think is going to deserve this player of the game, so head over to @LLEsports on Twitter and vote for your favorite. Now, you can choose between HeaQ, Blanc, and Prophet. To be honest, such a team game, man. I think it's kind of hard to call.
Yeah, I honestly think that this was a very difficult one to call as well. You know, like, overall, it was just a great team effort. We saw a lot of individual members really doing what they were supposed to do. A lot of early vision investment from Memento, Norskeren, providing a lot of disengage, and pretty much doing what you can do on a Janna.
He looked great on the Janna. Like, I was not sure how he'd do when he wasn't
so I'm looking forward to seeing who the fans choose, because personally, I struggle.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one. Now, next up, it is going to be Misfits Gaming versus G2 Esports, who faced off in the opening game of the Spring Split. Since then, however, a lot has changed, so more on that in just a few minutes. Very true. Those start to make some big differences. Oh, let's take a look in the mid lane here. Pride looking for Blanc. Whoa, there's an ultimate. Memento finding Nukeduck, and he's going to burn a summoner. Maybe not VandeR, Nukeduck. Vizicsacsi, the cavalry has arrived, and they are looking for Blanc, and they blank out his health bar. Flashing, but he's going the wrong way right now. Let's see if HeaQ Norskeren can fire him back. He tries to get the outplay, and in comes Vizicsacsi, but not before. He's gonna fall. HeaQ trying to get out of dodge. Well, Chachi's knocked up and locked up, and Prophet taking him down. The Corki had the spike, and now they're looking for the fight, trying to find VandeR here. There's just CC everywhere on this map, and VandeR trying to outlast it all, but he will not be able to do it. Blanc picks up another. Look, and the Call of the Forge God is coming. Let's see, they get a three-man knockup, and it's a bloodbath in the mid lane. Roccat say, you want to go now? We'll end this right here. Hopping forward, that's a double kill over. They absolutely find it. One clean fight at the end of the game. That's exactly what they needed, and Roccat go 5-5.